everybody, welcome back to Rain and Pours. I'm Mitch and today I'm showing you how to mix up the SUPs into your bloom pouring medium. So if you aren't aware, SUP has just released a line of super chrome chameleon color shifting pigments called Stuck Up Pigs. These are the cute little jars here. And so this is a completely new product. They are chameleon pigments, so they shift through more than one color, often through 5 or 6, and they're just absolutely stunning. But they do need to be mixed a little bit differently to your normal pigments because you definitely do not need as much of these to color your pouring medium as you do of the regular this little piggy pigments. So they are a completely different brand. They are still from Floetrol, but these are called Stuck Up Pigs because they are very bougie, very fancy, and they're very, very expensive. Now, just to put that in perspective, this little jar here, so let me grab you a full jar of TLP. This is this little piggy Comet. This one is Stuck Up Pig. Now, this jar, it's an interference, costs about $25, $26 here in Australia. This little jar here will cost us about $16 or $17 for that tiny little jar. In comparison, you get 20 grams in this. This is 1 gram in a 3 gram jar. So I just want to make you aware, you are buying 1 single gram of pigment, but this 1 single gram will get you a very, very long way. And I'll tell you how much paint I can mix up when I'm mixing on my table. So I'll tilt the camera down and I'll show you how to mix these into your bloom pouring medium. Okay, so we have the 3 brand new Stuck Up Pigs. So this one is called Pompous. This is a black to red chameleon color shift. We have Pretentious, which is blue, green, indigo, violet, all sorts of amazing colors in there. And this one is Boastful, which is a deep green to deep blue color shift. So I'll show you how to mix these up into your pouring medium. I did a reveal video on my channel a couple of days ago. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. Let me just adjust my camera so it's a bit more straight on. There we go. If you haven't seen the reveal video, check that out. I show you how to use them in resin, and just so you can see, this is what they look like over black resin, and you can see that color shift there. That is all one pigment. That is Pretentious on that one. This one is Boastful, and you get a real sense of how deep that color is there, and on the end is Pompous. So red to black. You can really see that when you tilt it that far into the light. Okay, so bloom pouring medium. I'm in Australia, so I use Taubmans untinted Door & Trim in gloss neutral for my pouring medium, which at the moment is being discontinued and being reworked into a new formula. So you can't find this on the shelves at the moment, but do not panic because it will be back relatively shortly, I'm told. I'm just going to tilt this up a little bit more so it's a bit closer to me. There we go. Now you can see a little bit better what I'm going to do. Okay, so as with any pigments, we first have to disperse these in a little bit of gloss varnish, and I use Josonja gloss varnish, which comes in this bottle here. Okay, this is Josonja gloss varnish, and we use this to disperse our pigments for any pouring medium so that they get nice and wet and they mix easily into our pouring medium. So I'm going to just squirt a little bit of varnish into each of these, and I add enough that I know that when I mix my paints in, it's going to turn out relatively the correct consistency. Now, this is a 3 gram jar with 1 gram of pigment inside. So when you get your jars, they will be half to 1/3 full. And I don't know if you can see, but there you go. So that jar is not entirely full. So please expect that. You are not going to receive a full jar of pigment. You are going to receive 1 gram. Okay, I want to make that very clear. So when you open it, you want to be very careful not to spill any of this because this is expensive stuff. The reason it is so expensive is because it has chroming agents added to it, and to get multiple colors to shift through one single pigment is very expensive to do, especially with purple colors. So Pretentious, for example, has a purple pigment in there, which is super, super expensive to make in a chrome. So to color this much pouring medium, I'm gently going to tap out some Pompous onto my stir stick. And I'm just going to tap out maybe a quarter of what is in that jar. So this is a SUP stir stick, and let me see if I can focus on this. It's so dark and black. So this is a Floetrol Co stir stick, and you can see how big the end of that is compared to how much pigment I've put on there. Not very much at all, but this is going to go a very long way. So I'm going to tap that into here, and we're going to disperse that. So when it's in the varnish, you can see just how deep that is. So super hard for me to catch this on camera, but I'm seeing this as a gorgeous deep red. Let me just tap some excess off so I don't drip any anywhere. Red wine, Grenache looking color. Like I said, super difficult to catch on camera, but when you see it in person, you understand why these are worth so much money. So that one is going to be Pompous. Then I'm going to mix up Pretentious. And again, just tapping out a little bit of pigment onto my stir stick. Now, just for reference, these are 2 ounce containers that I'm mixing in, and at the moment I've got maybe 1/4 of an ounce of Josonja in there and less than 1/4 of a teaspoon of pigment. This one here is Pretentious, which you can see changing those glorious colors on the stick there. Okay, those are nice and wet. And this one is Boastful. Now, when you're mixing these, please be aware that you should wear a mask when you're handling dry pigment. I'm keeping my face nice and far away from the actual containers so I don't inhale any of this pigment because it can cause damage to your lungs, just like with any powder. Okay, and that one is Boastful. So, mixing ratios. I have mixed 2.5 grams of pigment into 8 ounces of paint. That is the highest sort of pigment load I have gone with these chameleons. So 2.5 grams of pigment will make 1 ounce of paint, 8 ounces of paint, sorry. So if we halve that, 1.25 grams should do about 4 ounces. So 1 gram should make about 3 ounces of paint. Now, when you're using a whole gram of paint, a whole gram of pigment, that paint will go a very long way because of how pigmented these are. So these will stretch really, really nice and far when you're using them in your blooms. So now I have my untinted paint, and I'm just going to add a little blob of that to each container, maybe a tablespoon's worth. Doesn't matter which country you're in, use your tablespoon. So in Australia, they are 15 mils or 20 mils. Everywhere else, they're the other one. They're either 15 or 20. I can never remember which is which. So yeah, just use a tablespoon of paint and you're going to mix that up. Now, I say that you need to mix these differently because when you add these to your paint, they are not going to look very pigmented in your pouring medium. So for example, this is Pompous, and you can see instantly it's gone a yucky, milky, ugly red that doesn't look very appealing at all, and it looks very, very grey and washed out. But as long as your pouring medium dries clear, your pigments will still shine and they'll look amazing. So I'm also going to show you what I pair these with in terms of paint colours, because I find that these work best on black by themselves. So I'm just adding a touch more paint there because my paint is a little bit thin. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So even though it's very grey in the pouring medium, when you smear it nice and thin over black, you get the red colour shift. So I don't know if you can see that. I can see it still. So it is there, but Pompous is very hard to display on camera because they don't pick up reds very well. So let's see if Pretentious does any better for us. And I'm going to add just a little bit more paint. Some of these will look relatively similar in pouring medium, and some of them will look totally washed out, totally, oh my God, what have I done? And a lot of the issues that we face when people are mixing this little piggy pigments and getting dull colors, they will still apply with these SUPs, but when you mix them into your pouring medium, do not be scared if they look milky and gross like this. This is normal. So this one is Pretentious. Okay, and last we've got Boastful. Again, just a tiny bit more paint, and you can always adjust your ratios of paint to pigment as you see fit. Obviously, the more chameleon pigment you add to your paint, the more vibrant it's going to be when it's mixed up. But you don't want to add too much because you can lose you oversaturate the mixture and you're just wasting precious pigment for no reason, when if your pouring medium dries clear, it'll be shown anyway. So this one is Boastful. Okay, so again, really ugly washed out color, but there we go, we can see the Boastful on that one. Okay, so now let's put these aside, and I'm going to mix up some tube paint now, and I've got some colors that I'm going to pair with these to make the SUPs shine in a bloom. So for Pompous, I'm not going to pair it with anything. So this is Pompous that I've got mixed up already, and I'm just going to add that to this in a minute. So with Pompous, I'm going to leave it plain over black because I really want you to see that awesome red to black color shift. And I find that if I pair this with anything, I've tried it with Grenache and I've tried it with Sapphire, both from TLP, and the little piggies sort of interfere with the color shifting of the red and black. So I've chosen to leave that by itself. I'll show you what that looks like. With Boastful, I'm going to pair that with Matisse Midnight Blue and Matisse Payne's Grey. They're the only two, that's the only brand I've got dark blues in, and I think they'll pair really well with Boastful. And with Pretentious, I'm going to pair that with Amsterdam, Permanent Red Violet and Permanent Blue Violet. So, if you didn't know, Amsterdam has two series of paint. They've got Expert and Standard, and I'm very happy to let you know that very shortly, SUP Co. will be the only company in North America to be supplying every single colour of Amsterdam paints across both ranges, and that will be available. The paint ranges will be available in every location around the world. So we're just waiting on those shipments to go out and arrive in the ports, and then these will be up on the website for purchase. And yes, we're going to have every single Amsterdam paint colour, which is going to be absolutely awesome. No more waiting 6 weeks for it to come from overseas like we have to sometimes here in Australia. So that'll be absolutely awesome to have our paints when we need them. Okay, so to mix up our bloom paints with these, and I've paired these two because Pretentious shifts through a couple of purple shades, and these are nice and dark. So on a black background with these nice dark purples, Pretentious is going to play really nicely. So to mix up my normal tube paints, I just add in a couple of blobs of untinted paint. I don't mix up my SHELEeart pouring medium anymore. I tend to add the paint and then just eyeball it from there. I find that I can get my mixes a little bit closer than if I have them already mixed into a pouring medium. So this one is Amsterdam Permanent Red Violet. Now this is the first time that I'm using these colours, and I'm really excited for that. I've got Amsterdam Permanent Blue Violet and Matisse Payne's Grey. Payne's Grey I've used a couple of times. It's a really nice dark greyish blue. And some Payne's Greys can tend to be on the blue side, and some Payne's Greys can tend to be on the grey side. So it just depends on the brand and what type of paint you get. So I'm just going to mix this in, and already I love this colour. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay, so this is the Amsterdam Permanent Red Violet. And I'm going to add in my varnish and water mixture. So this is Josonja gloss varnish mixed with water. And I've done about a 3:1 ratio. So 3 parts of Josonja gloss varnish and 1 part of water. So that will help thin your mixtures down really quickly without compromising the structure of the paint too much. Looking good, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Adding the varnish is necessary for this technique because the extra gloss allows the cell activator to float on top and form those lovely cells that we love so much. Okay, so Permanent Red Violet by Amsterdam. Then we'll do the same. I'm just going to add my varnish straight into here, mix it all at once. This is Permanent Blue Violet. And I find with purples are so very difficult. The only one that I've really been satisfied with is Matisse Dioxazine Purple. But Amsterdam has quite a selection of purple colours, and they're all fantastic. So I'm really happy that I've got these two, and that we'll have access to the entire line, because these provide, you know, opposite contrasting colours. We've got the red violet, we've got the blue violet, and in the tube they look just like normal purples, but mixed up you can really see the difference in the colours and the shades, which is fantastic to me. Okay, Permanent Blue Violet, and this one is Matisse Payne's Grey. So, and you can see I didn't add much paint at all, maybe just the opposite end of the mixing stick worth, and we've coloured, this is about 35 mils of paint in a 70 mil container. So these little baby food cups, you can also buy these at SUP Co. In most of the locations, I believe. I know they're definitely available in Canada, America and Australia. Now with the Payne's Grey, maybe I didn't add enough paint, but it is a very greyish blue. So sometimes you do need to add a little bit more colour, a little bit more paint to your mixture to get it that nice deep vibrant shade that matches the tube. So I'm going to do that. I am pretty close. Ow. So just add another little drop, and I prefer the Matisse structure paints because they are thicker and they're going to allow you to thin your mixture down a little bit more and more easily than if you add a flow paint, because the flow paint will thin your mixture as well. Okay, and I think that's the full pigmentation that I'm going to get. It is a little bit darker, but not by too much. So the things that I'm going to do today, I'm going to do 8 tiles. So 2 of each color combination, and then I'm going to combine all 3 piggies on the same tile to show you what they look like next to each other. So I'll do that as a swipe side by side. So hopefully we can see all 3 color shifts dry over a black pillow paint. And that's looking good. All right, so I'm going to move these off to the side, put these up on my shelf, and we're going to get painting. Now we come to the exciting part. So let me grab some tiles. Okay, I've got my spinner ready to go back here. Just put the, I'll leave that open actually. Okay. So now I've got Matisse Midnight Blue. I'm just going to grab a couple of stir sticks here. And my Midnight Blue is all crusty and old because it's been sitting there for a little while, but I only need just a little bit of this. I'll thin that out when I pour. And we've got Pretentious. Pretentious is this one. So I did mix these up. Just gotta make sure this is Pretentious. I mixed these up yesterday when I did my reveal video. And I know that they're nice and mixed. There's no pigment sitting on the bottom of the tub. So this is what it should look like when it's mixed up. Okay, so it's a very pale greyish version of the colour. Like I said, don't panic, it's normal. I will show you right now that everything is going to be fine. Okay. And I will wash out these containers and I'll use them for mixing something else a little bit later on. Okay, and Pompous. Pompous is the last one. Pompous looks the worst out of the 3 when you mix it up. You can really see that it's definitely not the colour that it looks like in the jar, or even spread out as a powder. Okay, so those 3, like I said, I'll reuse these, wash these out, just put them in my wash bucket. Okay, they're out of the way. Now, let's bring in my spinner. Okay, so like I said, these work best over a black background. So that's what I'm going to use today. I've got my Taubmans exterior low sheen in black. This is the 4 Seasons Clean and Protect. And the reason you want to use a black background is so that the light shines through the pigment, bounces off the black and hits you back in the eye, and it's going to look much more vibrant than if you do it on white. So let me grab just a little bit of paint here to smear that onto my spinner, and that's so my tile doesn't go flying, as is wont to happen in this place. And I'm going to grab a swipey tool and my scrapey tool. Okie dokie. So let's pour down some puddle, and we're going to do a bloom first. Oh, my paint is very, very liquid. So let me just give this a little bit of a shake. So let's try Pompous first. Again, we're just going to bloom with just Pompous and black cell activator. Now, the amount of pigment you need is very, very small. So that's all I'm going to use. Okay, it's about a quarter of what I would normally use any other color, and you'll see why in a minute. So now we're going to put cell activator straight on top, and I'm just going to bring this towards me to blow this out. Okay, got some gorgeous cells happening. And now let's give it a spin. I don't have enough pouring medium on here, pillow paint on here, and it's a little bit thick. So I'm going to thin that out with a little bit more of the black paint that needed thickening. The downside to using the untinted paint in the pillow is it can thicken up really, really quickly, and it will thicken as it sits as well. So if you've mixed this up today and you go to use it tomorrow, you may find it's too thick again and you need to add more of the thin paint. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Now I'm just going to add some more paint on the edges here so that my bloom actually flows and covers the whole surface. And if we have a look, let's see if we can try and get that color shift. So you can very barely see it on the edges there. I can see a more intense shift when I hold it up to the light and I shift it around, but you can see that color is there. Now I'll show you these when they're dry so you can see what they look like. And if I've got that extra set of 3, I'll try and find that so I can show you exactly what the Pompous looks like. The next color is going to be Pompous as a swipe, the next tile I should say. So we'll swipe it on with the cell activator on the swipe tool. Now with a swipe, I don't put nearly as much paint on there, and I give it a spin first to even out the puddle. And the benefit of using black paint is everything that you scrape off can go into a cup, and it can be used to make black paint because everything goes into black. So on my swipe tool here, this is the SUP Co. Big Swiper. I don't know what number it is, but it's the big square. I'm going to add my black cell activator, and then I'm going to drizzle Pompous over the back of my swipe tool as well. So just like this, and then I'm going to swipe from the center, I think. There we go, nice gentle swipe. And wipe that off. Okay, so let's give this a spin. Got to get that paint moving, get enough paint off so we don't crack. Now, I did use a palette knife that was way too big for the tile. I should have used the smaller square palette knife, but, you know, YOLO. Where is my skewer? My skewer, because I'm going to make a pattern in the middle. I'm just going to swirl this through. Okay, so that's our second Pompous tile. Now, Pompous, like I said, is one of the harder colours to get to show up in your pouring medium, but it is one of the best colours when it is dry. So the next one we're going to do is Boastful. So I'm just going to cover Pompous up, and we're going to do Boastful next. So Boastful is the blue to green. So again, with our black pillow, and let me just see if I need to add... Yes, I need to thin that out a little bit. This is really hard when the weather changes and your paints change. You do have to adjust them to match. So this is also why we teach when you bloom to measure things by eye rather than a ratio, because as soon as the weather changes, your ratio goes out the window. Okay, so this one is a bloom, so a little bit more pillow on there. And we're doing 3 colours this time, so let's do the Midnight Blue. Let me see if I need to thin that. I do. Now, piece of advice is don't use colours that are too similar to those in the colour shift. And if you're going to use these in a bloom or in another pour, try and use them either by themselves or only with 1 or 2 other colours. You want these to be the feature, and you want these to be the star of the show. So I've picked 2 dark complementary blues, and we're going to drizzle those on. And hopefully these will set off the other colours in the Boastful mix. This one is Payne's Grey, so they do look relatively similar, but they are different. And this one is Boastful. Again, just a little bit on top. And these will work best if you use them as one of your last colours, either as the last or second to last under your cell activator, so that they can spread nicely over the top of everything else. Okay, you can see it there on the corner. Because my chameleon colours are a little bit thinner, they blew out a little bit further than the colours underneath, but you can see that there, and that'll dry really nicely with that interference around the of the chameleon colour around the cells, giving a little halo effect. So the next one will be a swipe. Spin that out. Let's do the black cell activator again. This time I'm going to put my blues on here. And then I'm going to drizzle Boastful onto my swipe tool. And do another circular swipe. That one was a little bit better. There we go, everything's covered. So let's have a look at this one. Now, this one is much better. I can see that green shift. Look at that, there we go. And looking at this, you can see where it's shifting to that green, that it's not individual particles of pigment. It is a solid mirror layer of color, and that color is actually everywhere on this tile, but trying to get it all to show is ridiculously difficult. So this is something you'll have to try. So if you're going to use multiple colors, I would say go with a swipe, because when you can swipe it, you can lay that color out more evenly than if you're trying to do a bloom. But blooms are definitely an option if you're going to do one single color. So just the SUPs. Now the last color in the lineup for the SUP so far is Pretentious, and I'm super excited for this one because it has one of the most intense color shifts I've ever seen in a pigment. And I'm just going to wrap up, I'm not even going to wrap up Boastful, I'm going to leave that out. So Pretentious is our purple to blue through green, through all the colours, colour shift there. And we're going to start off with our Amsterdam permanent red violet, which has thickened up quite a bit. And I'm even going to say now, I think this colour is a little bit too vibrant to use with these, but let's give it a go. We're just going to do a little bit. Then we're going to do our permanent blue violet. And then Pretentious on top. Now this is where consistency is really important, because the chameleon pigments are a little bit thinner than my paints. They're going to be blown out a little bit further. Because look at that color shift happening there. That blue, the greens, it's fantastic. And again, this is all over the tile. I can see multiple colors, and because we use tube paint underneath and not other pigments, the only shimmer is coming from that SUP, that stuck up pig on top. Love that. Can't wait to see what this is going to look like as a swipey swipe. I'm glad I trust my gut sometimes. Now, if I haven't said it already, you can buy all of these products, the SUPs, the swipe tools, the mixing sticks. You can get all of those from fluid-art.co. And they have dispatch locations in the USA, Canada, Australia, the UK and Europe. So as a swipe, I give it a little bit of a spin, and then we're going to put our permanent red violet first, permanent blue violet next, and let me thin this one out just a little bit. And so these colors look really, really different on camera than what they do in real life, but they also look really different in the jar to what they look like mixed up, or in the tube to what they mixed up. Not that they look very different, but they look so much more vibrant when they're actually mixed into a pouring medium. So again, I've got my black cell activator on the back of my swipe tool, and I've just drizzled the Pretentious onto the back like this. Okay, and let's do our swipe. And that was another good one. So the downside to using a swipe tool that is too big for the project you're working on is that you will end up having a really hard time trying to get it centered on everything in there. Okay, this one's done. Let's have a look at, nearly flipped it. Let's have a look at the color shift. It's so gorgeous. That was terrifying. I thought I'd stuffed it. Okay. Beautiful colors there. You can see that blue coming through. Again, because these are in the pouring medium, they're not completely dry yet. They're still going to look a little bit milky. You can see the color shift there, but they're going to look a little bit dull until they're perfectly dry. That is normal. Now for the last two tiles, I'm going to bloom and then swipe just with the 3 chameleon pigments to show you what they look like over plain black. And then you can decide if you like them over plain black or if you want to mix them with other colors. So let's do a puddle here. And again, this is going to be our 3 pigments as a bloom. So let's get some Pompous on there. Then let's get some Boastful next to it. And then some Pretentious on the top. So hopefully when I blow this out, we're going to get 3 separate colors. Okay? Wish me luck. Cell Activator directly in the middle. Okay, this one's gonna look good. All right, let's see. Ooh. Do I still have another goober in there? No, it's just where that other one was. Okay, so you can see very lightly those pigments. But remember how little we mixed into that pouring medium, and then again, how little we actually put on this tile. So that's something to remember. Let me just give that a little bit of a spin to see if I can spin out that part that I ruined. Hopefully it dries flat. Okay, that's the bloom. Now let's do this as a swipe, and I'm really excited to see how this works. And I'm not going to do a spin swipe, I'm going to do a straight swipe. I don't do those often. Do you pronounce the T in often? I don't know why I did just then. But yeah, let's go with it, okay? So get our pillow on. I'm going to spread this out nice and thin to start with, so that we don't get too much spreading of our cells. And then I'm actually going to cover the tile, the corners, so that way the paint's going to flow nicely on this one. Right, so we're going black cell activator on our swipe tool. Okay, and I'm actually going to tap that off because we don't want too much. Looks like that, just black cell activator on there. And I'm going to layer my colors horizontally so that when I swipe, they're going to be in 3 defined lines. Well, that's the plan, I hope. And I'm putting less Boastful in the middle because that's going to spread the most when we spin. So let's just go straight across. I'm so proud of myself. Okay, now watch me screw this up. That was probably the best perfectly aligned straight swipe I've ever done. Let's give it a spin. Let's get all that paint spread out. Let's have a look at this one, because this one we should be able to see all of those colours. So again, that red, very elusive when it's wet, but you can sort of see that colour shifting in the other 2 pigments there. So again, because it's milky, it's going to block a lot of the light from getting to the pigment, but once it's dry, and especially under resin, these are really, really going to pop. Okay, so I'm going to wait until these are dry. I'll come back and I'll show you what they look like totally dry, and I may even pop some resin on there to show you what they look like under resin. All right, I'll be back soon. Okay, everybody, so the coasters are dry. It's been a couple of days, and I've left it a couple of days so that they've got plenty of time to cure. And I'm going to show you what they look like dry, and then we're going to put some resin on them. And I might set up my macro camera as well to see how we can pour that resin on and see how it changes the color in these gorgeous coasters. So they look plain black now, but let's go through each one. And they will look really, really, really dark once they're dry. And you'll almost think, what the hell have I done? I've ruined these colors. But that gorgeous chameleon color is there. So if I tilt this in the light, there we go. I've just got to get the lighting right. Look how deep and vibrant that red is. So it's super difficult to get the lighting right. Okay, let's see if this is better with just overhead lighting. No, not at all. Okay, so this section probably isn't going to work out the best, but we're going to give it a go. So this is the Pompous, that beautiful deep red. Then we've got Boastful, which is our blue and green. And look at that, it's chalk and cheese when you turn it on that angle. Incredible. So that's the swipe, this one is the bloom, and the bloom, my pillow was a little bit thin, so it spread out a bit too much. Let me just put my phone on silent, because that's going to constantly keep dinging. That's Billy messaging the group. And this one is Pretentious. Pretentious came up the best, I think. I had the best swipe on this one. And the best thing about Pretentious is depending on which angle you get it on, you can get more than one color shifting at the same time. So when I'm tilting this, because the cells in the sheleeart bloom technique are 3D and they're raised a little bit sometimes, you can get multiple colors all at once happening there. So this one is the bloom, and you can better see that multiple shift happening there. Now, this one is the swipe with all three colors. So here we go. Let's try and get Pompous in there to join the party. And look at that. Okay, so this is probably extreme number one, where we've got the light pink, the dark blue, and the red. And then if I just tilt it towards me, there we go. There's that shift in the green, the blue, going through violet. Pompous is now black, and then we've got that deep emerald green on the other end. And this one is our triple bloom. So we've got all three colors there. Pompous here, Boastful here, and Pretentious here. How cool are they? All right, now we're going to put some resin on them and see if we can get some visual of the color shifting. So I'm going to set up my macro camera. I'll film this really, really close up, and we'll see if we can get some of those colors showing. Now we're focused on this one up the top here. I'm going to pour the resin on, and we're going to see if our macro camera will pick up the amazing chameleon shift that gets brought out by the resin. I don't think my lighting is good enough for this. Let me turn it up a little bit more. So I have adjustable studio lights in my studio here, and I can dim them and make them brighter. There we go. All right, and you can see the gorgeous red coming out of that. All right, so I'll move my tray down to get the focus on each one, and we'll see if we can see the colors changing. Because usually when you put the resin down, you see all of those amazing colors come out. Now, because my bench is perfectly level all the way across, and I've already got the focus in the macro lens, we should be able to see how those colors change. And then once I've got all the resin on these, I'll use my fingers to spread them out, and then I'll show you in the camera, if I can, how they look. Okay, so I've done the 3 swipes. I'm just going to apply the rest of the resin to the remaining coasters, the blooms, and then I'll spread these out with my fingers like I normally do. Okay, so while we've got this one in focus, let's smear the resin on and see if we can see that color shift happening. And it just looks phenomenal. Straight away, everything just looks so much more vibrant. So I'll move this tray back over, and I'll do Boastful in the macro lens while I show you these ones over here. Effect. All right, so I'll do Boastful next. Let's see if we can see how the color changes. So I can see at eye level the deep, deep blue in Boastful, and then as soon as I turn around slightly, I get the green. This little portion of shifting color is one of the hardest things to try and catch. One, without reflections in the resin from the overhead lighting. 2, to catch the amazing depth of color that is in these pigments. And 3, that the angle you have to see them from changes. So whichever color you're looking at them from, you're going to get something different every time. All right, everybody. So our coasters are now cured. The resin is all cured on these. It's been 24 hours since I poured it. So we are ready to have a look at these stuck up pigs under resin. So this is the final result, and I can't wait to show you what they look like. So let's start off with Pompous. Pompous, again, our deep red to black. And let's have a look at this. So straight away, as soon as I tilt it this way, and let's get the camera focused up here. There we go. And a little bit wobbly there. Okay. Look at that. Fantastic shift there. Let me see if we can get a better look. No? Okay, so we definitely need those lights. Wonder if dulling them down a little bit is going to help. Just so they're not as bright. There we go. And I'll bring it up much closer so we get a really nice close-up shot of these. Okay, here we go. Look at that gorgeous, gorgeous red. And when you shift it back to here, it goes totally black. So this is no trick of the lights. This is all that stuck up pig Pompous. See, there I go saying TLP. And you can really see how deep that color is. And if I tilt it at the right angle, I can see it. So when I'm holding it up here, you guys can see black. I'm seeing a vivid orange. It's almost the same as this little piggy Horizon in its intensity. So depending on which angle you look at it from will depend on which color you get. That was our swipe. This one is our bloom. So look at how it catches those cells and just makes them look 3D. Now this is just one color. And the effects that you can get with it are just stunning. So it makes it look like there are 3D pebbles under that resin. So that was Pompous. This one is Boastful. This is our swipe. So our swipe, if you remember, we did with the Midnight Blue and the Payne's Grey. And Boastful is just stealing the show. You really don't even see the Midnight Blue or the Payne's Grey in there, because Boastful is just taking over everything, and I'm not mad about it. So you can see the gorgeous blue on that side, and then as soon as you tilt it, it catches a little bit of light. There it goes green, and we've got that deep emerald there. And this is really the only way that you would want to look at these coasters, is up close and shifting side to side. You can really get all of that amazing depth of color. So then with our bloom, this one went a little bit askew, but it's a great way to show you how even just a little bit of that pigment can accent your blooms just under that cell activator. Because look at those awesome cells. You can see that they're just ringed with the Boastful there. And I can see them much better. They're like, it's almost spacey, like it would be a shame to keep this as it is and not modify it. So I may embellish this coaster a little bit more with a galaxy or something on there. Next we have Pretentious. Now Pretentious, we mixed in the Amsterdam red violet and the Amsterdam blue violet. And look at that color shift there. So we've got pink, trying not to get too much of my lights in there. Pink, we're going through blue, purple, just trying to get that blue shift. The blue shift is further on this angle. Then I can tilt it, but the blue shift is in there. So again, there's certain colors that you can only see from certain angles, and I can't always show that on camera, which is a real letdown because these pigments are stunning. This one might be a little bit better for the blue. There we go. We can see a little bit of it there. Shifting this way. There's some of the green. We've got that violet, that light purple. We've got the pinks on this end of the spectrum. Just gorgeous. All right, now let's have a look at the three of them together. So this one is the swipe. So let's go from this way. all of those beautiful colors there. Look how vibrant that red is. And then as soon as you get to here, it goes black, totally black. And then comes back out as a deep cherry or wine red on that side. And look at the vibrancy of those colors just there. And lastly, we have our bloom with all three. So using these just by themselves in a coaster or on an artwork, you can see the amazing effects you can get with it. Especially this one. So there's Pretentious here with Boastful inside the cell. So as you shift on one angle, you get purple with a ring of blue on the inside. And then as you go to the other way, you get pink with that deep indigo. And then halfway through, you get greens. You get the Pompous on this end, all shifting through different colors, which I think are just phenomenal. So let's bring this up like this and see if we can get some of that color shifting without dropping any of them. And they're just awesome. So whether you use them in a pouring medium or whether you're using them to dust resin molds or you're using them in resin, these pigments are a fantastic addition to any arsenal, especially if you like that color shifting look. Okay, so that wraps up the bloom and swipe demonstration. Now, if you remember, those colors look like a muted gray mess inside the containers. So don't panic when you apply them. I didn't switch these out for any other colors or pigments in the process. That's exactly what they do. And they look that ugly gray mess in the pot, but have faith, they will turn out absolutely freaking stunning. You don't need a lot. I mixed just half a gram of pigment to make about 50 to 70 mils of pouring medium, and we get these stunning results with them. Now, because they are chameleon pigments, you do not need any more than that. Any more than that and you'll be wasting the pigment. Because they are ground so fine and so tiny, they will spread nice and evenly and give you that full dispersion on top of your paints. Now, I did choose transparent colors to use on my black for my paints, so they don't show up very well at all, which I'm a little bit, annoyed at myself that I didn't think of that before. But on white, they would look fantastic. Now, as I've mentioned, I'm not a fan of using the chameleon pigments on white because I find that they lose their shimmer. However, Nikki D's just posted a freaking phenomenal video showing how she's used them on a white background, and Jessica Winterstrom has been doing amazing work as well. They always layer a darker color underneath, but you can use a white background underneath that, as long as you've got something to sort of catch the pigment and allow that to reflect and refract the light back from underneath. All right, guys, so don't forget, if you like what I'm doing here and you're interested in buying these Stuck Up Pigs, they go live for sale on October 20th, which is a Thursday. That's this coming Thursday in the US and Friday in Australia. And I believe it's 3 p.m. Washington time, 9 a.m. Australia time in Sydney. The other times for the release are listed in my previous video. So get your hands on some Stuck Up Pigs, get blooming, and I hope to see you in the next video. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and I'll see you then. Bye, guys.